couple of things. Footwear, something flat. So if you have your Ollie shoes on, your heel shoes on, I'll probably take them off. Okay. Putting yourself here is going to shift your weight forward, which is not going to be a really good thing for the deadlift. Okay. So flat shoes are going to be preferred here. That's number one. What are our 3 cues? Root of feet, breathe and brace, bend the bar. So in the case of the deadlift, so we talked about the bench and the squat. In the case of the deadlift, if you're a conventional lifter, you're not going to have to root as aggressive when you have a closer stance. If you are a wide stance sumo guy, you're going to have to root a little harder and really open up your hips quite a bit. Okay. When we break up into groups, we're going to do what we call, I call it a pump drill, which is just working on setting up. We're going to do that a few times, and then we're going to do some pause repetitions to work the groove. Okay. So basically, the pump drill is just a way to kind of position yourself into the bar. There's many different ways to set up in the deadlift. If you guys have seen Benny Magnuson, he likes to roll it. A lot of the strongman guys like to roll it. Some people like to grip and rip. Some people like to kind of squat down to the bar and set themselves up from the bottom up. I like to set myself up from the top down, and I'll explain what that means. We're going to start in a bad position, just like we did on bench. So we started off flat back, and then we pulled our chest up into a good position. We're going to start off with a round back, stiff-legged position, and pull ourselves into a good deadlift position. If you're a bigger guy, you probably need to step off the bar a little bit. If you're a smaller girl, or if you're pulling sumo, you're going to probably have to inch up to the bar a little bit more. But in general, you want the barbell over your midfoot, or around like where your shoelaces would be. Okay? So this would be too close, and the reason being, if I bend my knees, what happens? Bar is forward. If I sit up too far away, it's already in forward. It's already forward, right? So I want to be somewhere in between. How wide should you go? If you do have a table, you could kind of do like a Thomas test and see like where your kind of hip kind of falls out. It's a little bit, again, outside the scope, but there are some assessments you can do if you're interested. After I can kind of show you. But in general, if you got a bigger belly, you got wider hips, probably going to be a little wider. Brian Shaw's conventional is like here. Brian Shaw is a dinosaur. So, literally. I was talking to him like this. Hurt my neck, okay? So if you're if you have a narrow waist, narrow person, you're probably going to have a little closer stance. So I've seen some girls are like, even like within their shoulder width. It works very well for them. Someone like, I don't know, she's not really lifting anymore, so it's kind of relevant. But there's some smaller girls that have that really close stance. A bigger, Marissa's a good example for squat and deadlift, actually. Yeah. So that's going to be, your foot lift's going to be kind of varied. For the sumo, if you have a lot of external rotation, you're going to see like Andrew has basically got maximum width, so his feet doesn't like smash the plates basically. You don't want, but someone like myself or Steven is going to have a little bit more of a moderate sumo stance. Okay, so we're going to go over sumo and conventional. And for the sake of teaching people, I don't like to teach too much difference in between the two, except the actual like feeling and starting position of it. But as far as the setup, it's going to be very similar. That way, it cuts down the learning curve. But obviously, there's going to be some different styles depending on the person. Andrew's also going to go over how to do a hook grip as well when he goes. I have sausage Italian fingers, so the hook grip's not working for me. Okay.
Baby, no, thank you.
And if you just don't like having your thumbs in pain. So. The advantage of a hook grip, though, is it's going to shorten the range of motion and put your shoulders in a more mechanically efficient position where you can engage your lats, which he'll expand on a little bit more. So we're going to go over the pump drill. We're going to go over the pause deadlift, sumo and conventional, and I'm going to have each of our athletes come up and demo, and they're going to explain their setup and their execution. So I'm going to root. I'm going to breathe and brace. I'm going to bend the bar, and I'm trying to shrug down and engage. If I'm using over-under, shrug down, engage. A lot of times the underhand is problematic. That's a lot of times with if you ever helicopter. So one of the things that I recommend in one of my recent YouTube videos is actually doing some underhand rowing exercises and back exercises. So you get some, it's going to help your mobility, so you get supinate and actually rotate a little bit better and allow you to gain some strength in that position. So again, it's like, why would you want to do an underhand row? It's like, well, that's why we'd want to do an underhand row. So that's why some people sometimes people just have variety for the sake of variety. Have intent, have purpose with your accessory work, okay? I'm going to do the Brandon Lilly. But you can do whatever you want. I like to kind of do this thing, you know, I want to feel my lockout And then just, so I'm feeling and I'm visualizing my finished position. I actually like to let all my air out and get it as loose as possible so I can start very loose and then build tension as I come down. Again, bow and arrow, explode, okay? I'm gonna grab it just outside my legs. I don't want my knee to smash into my forearm. So as close as you can. If I'm too close, what's gonna happen?
You won't be able to lock out.
I can't lock out, it's gonna twit, I'm gonna have grip issues if I'm too close. So a lot of people think they have a grip problem, but it's really a technique problem. Either the hands are too close or the bar is too much in the fingertips because they're getting forward. So a lot of times, oftentimes, it's not necessarily a grip issue. If you do actually have a legitimate grip issue, a real easy way is you could do high holds or just hold your lockouts a little bit longer just to get more strength in that position. This is just the pump drill. Breathe and brace. With this kind of weight, it might float a little bit. You're not actually having to try to float. Someone like Andrew's a good example. Even if it's like less than 500 pounds, it might float a little bit. I'm trying to pull the slack out of the bar and hear that click with straight arms. So it's like you're elongating your arms while pulling up while pushing your feet into the ground. It's kind of a weird thing. It's like you're pulling up but pushing down. Trying to elongate and take all the slack out of the bar and using the barbell for leverage. Okay, trying to wedge my hips close to the bar. So basically it looks like this from the side. And I want my hips low enough. Once my shins touch, done. If I drive my shins too far forward, the bar's gonna bump forward, okay? So you want that happy medium. So that's the pump drill. If I did sumo, the biggest thing is hips open. He's gonna do a better job of this than me. Hips open, pelvis close to the bar. Hips open, not hips low, pelvis closer to the bar. That's pelvis far away from the bar. That's pelvis close to the bar. See the difference? I'm not squatting. I'm wedging my hips, okay? Difference. So here I'm trying to root. I'll do this weird thing with my hands, so I'm visualizing myself rooting. I start round. Okay? Whew. All right. But see how it's floating a little bit? And again, watching him, working with someone like Gina Versa last year, I will say I'll give these, it helped a lot. I was able to kind of reverse engineer what these guys were doing well, and that allowed me to coach the sumo a lot better, because it's definitely it's a lot more technical. I like to use the analogy, sumo deadlift, like a golf swing, conventional deadlift more like a hammer swing. Okay, you can kind of muscle the weight up and there's not as much consequence. You cannot muscle a sumo deadlift up. It is a highly technical lift. Okay? People may try, but so a lot of people think sumo cheating and all that stuff. It's a skill. Okay, you need to have the hip strength to do it. So don't do a wide stance conventional. That is not a thing. If you want to do a stiff-legged sumo as an accessory, that's another thing, but there's a sumo deadlift, there's a conventional deadlift, and then there's a bad sumo deadlift. So just pick, okay? Okay, so really quick, now we're going to go through the pause for both, and I'll have these guys demo. So we're going to do the pump drill, we're going to do that once, and then we're going to do a pause. So it's going to look like this. Root, breathe and brace, pull the slack out and bend the bar. Pump a couple of times. 1, 2, leg press, hip extension. I'm not overextending my back, I'm not softening my knees, straight up and down. Bend hip hinge, bend the knees. Pump. Leg press, hip extension. Wedging the bar. Okay, so I'm trying to have remember we talked about there. 2-part lift, no good. Smooth. Yuri Buggin's a really good example of this. Obviously, he really drives explosively, and he throws his hips and back into the lift. Sumo. And just as a side note, I always warm up with the pause at the 135, and then I'll do dynamics after that just to work the groove. Just as a tip. And you can do that with bench, squat, and deadlift.
Are you walking your knees out
out really hard?
So I have a problem with soft knees, but yeah, I'd like to see. So when I lock out for both, quad, and butt. Quad and butt flexed. If I only flex my butt, no good. Quads and butt.
Can I throw something in?
You're gonna go, but yeah.
So you hear how winded John is right now? Not to throw you on.
Yeah.
So Casey Williams is a really good lifter out in the Pittsburgh area.
Yeah.
Hardest part from him every single time is the setup.
Yeah.
It is not supposed to be comfortable, and if it is, it's probably not a good setup. And you'll notice that from Drew too.
And that's what we talked about. That was the first thing we talked about. So yeah, this is one plate, but it's like treat your warm-ups like your max. Treat your max like your warm-ups. It's like an old. I don't know if it's like some weird saying, but
it's a thing.
It's a saying. Okay.